The wife of the infamous Mexican drug lord known as El Chapo was released from federal custody today.
Rob, this is an uphill battle for El Chapo, but the man nicknamed Shorty tonight is in a do-or-die situation. The firefight that brought down El Chapo blazed almost 9 years ago.
Joaquin Archivaldo Guzman Loera, commonly known as El Chapo, is a Mexican drug lord from Sinaloa. He was born on the 4th of April 1957. Guzman was raised in poverty and had an abusive father. At a tender age of 9 years old, his uncle and a pioneer in drug trafficking introduced him to drugs. He started farming and selling marijuana under his uncle's guidance. He worked with drug lord Hector Luis Palma Salazar as a map reader, giving Hector and his team safe routes to sneak drugs locally and internationally. He then worked with Miguel Gallardo in the Sinaloa cartel, but after DEA agent Kiki Camarena's death and Gallardo's imprisonment, Guzman started his own cartel in 1988. This marked the era of the great drug lord El Chapo. He started selling drugs of all sorts locally and internationally. He even pioneered drug distribution through low-range tunnels near borders, which enabled him to traffic more drugs into the United States than any other trafficker ever had before him, making him an enemy of the United States. The thing about crime is, it doesn't pay. But for someone like El Chapo, the payments were always very affordable for him, or at least, that's what he thought. In 1993, Guzman was arrested in Guatemala and extradited. He was later charged with drug trafficking and murder. He was sent to serve his sentence in a maximum security prison in Mexico. Through bribery and coercion, Guzman served his prison time like a king in his palace. Inmates and guards treated him with the utmost respect and waited on him hand and foot. Given that El Chapo still had contact with very dangerous and very powerful people on the outside, they knew for a fact that he could easily ruin or end their lives anytime he wanted. In 2001, Guzman suspected that he might be extradited to the United States at any time. Fearing an extradition to the United States, Guzman began putting together a plan for his escape from prison. On January 19, 2001, the plan was put in action. He and his accomplice, a man named Francisco El Chito Camberos Rivera, who was a prison guard, had made a foolproof escape plan. When the hour came for Guzman to leave, Rivera electronically opened Guzman's sealed door, concealing him inside a laundry cart filled with dirty clothes, and began wheeling him through different doors out into the corridor. Unfortunately, the prison is still a maximum security level facility, and everything that goes in and out has to be checked. Another guard was required to inspect Rivera's cart containing Guzman. While Rivera was trying to convince the guard to just let him through, his hand slipped and the cart started rolling off on its own. This put Rivera and Guzman in an anxious state because they knew if that cart fell, Guzman would be exposed and their plan would be foiled. Luckily, Mother Nature took their side and the cart stopped. Rivera was then able to wheel Guzman out to the parking lot where he was transported out of town by a car. By doing this, Joaquin El Chapo Guzman had managed to escape a high-security Mexican prison with ease. Over the next decade, Guzman went on to build and run his empire as the king of the drug world. El Chapo had simultaneously earned a spot in Forbes magazine's billionaire list in 2009 for his drug wealth, as well as listed as one of the most wanted men in the world. There were millions of dollars in bounties placed on his head, both in the United States and in Mexico. At around 6:20 a.m. on the 22nd of February 2014, the Mexican authorities arrested Guzman at the beachfront hotels in Mazatlan following an operation by the Mexican Navy with joint intelligence from the Drug Enforcement Administration and the United States Marshal Service. The operation leading to his capture began at 3:45 a.m. when 10 pickup trucks from the Mexican Navy, carrying over 65 Marines, made their way to the resort. Mexican and United States federal agents had gathered intel that the drug lord had been at the location for at least 2 days. Intelligence agents had also found out that Guzman had a condo on the 4th floor of the building in room 401. When the authorities arrived at the building, they quickly neutralized Carlos Manuel Ramirez, who was Guzman's bodyguard. They then quietly made their way to the 4th floor through the elevator and stairs. Once soldiers and agents arrived at Guzman's condo, they broke in and stormed the 2 rooms. In one of the rooms, they found Guzman lying in bed with his wife. He was then rearrested and charged with drug trafficking, since they couldn't recharge him with other crimes more than once. The drug lord was then sent to Federal Readaptation Center No. 1, better known as Altiplano, where he once again orchestrated a movie-worthy prison break, which in turn humiliated the Mexican government and its prison structure. At 8:52 p.m. on the 11th of July 2015, El Chapo was seen in the shower area of his prison cell through CCTV footage. Those were put there to make sure guards always had an eye on him. Unfortunately for Guzman, the shower itself was the only blind spot in the cell. And after he disappeared from their view for 25 minutes, the guards panicked and ran to Guzman's cell to check on him. But Guzman was already gone. Keep in mind, this is one of the top security prisons in Mexico. The guards there had him on a 24-hour watch, and he still managed to escape, except for his unsupervised bathroom time. When the guards checked the prison, they found a tunnel leading from his bathroom to a construction site a mile away. The tunnel was 33 feet deep underground, and Guzman descended down there using a ladder. Down there were artificial lights, air ducts, and high-quality construction materials. In addition, they found a motorcycle down there that was possibly used to transport materials and Guzman himself. There's no doubt that El Chapo had a lot of outside help to execute this ingenious plan. 1 year after Guzman's flawless escape, he was recaptured for a third time. On the 8th of January 2016, El Chapo's home was raided by 17 Marines from the Mexican Army and Federal Police. This specific home had been under surveillance for a month after locals reported that they sighted armed men coming in and out of the house. Spies that were sent there claimed that the home was being prepared for the arrival of Grandma, which was code for boss, and they were almost sure that the boss was Joaquin El Chapo Guzman. When they went to bring Guzman back to prison, they faced difficulties breaking through his bulletproof door, and while they struggled at the door, Guzman took the opportunity to escape through a secret tunnel emerging 1.5 kilometers away from his house. Once he reached the other end of the tunnel, he robbed a civilian of his car at gunpoint and took off. A statewide hunt was launched for the car, as it was the only lead to Guzman. The car was found 2 days later, about 20 kilometers south of Los Mochis, near the town of Juan Jose Rios. This was the same place where they found Guzman as well. At the point of his arrest, Guzman tried bribing his arresting officer with money and property, but the officers were unwavering and remained steadfast while they took him in. This time, Mexican authorities had had enough of Guzman's escapades and made a deal with American authorities to hand him to them if they don't give him the death sentence. The American authorities took the deal, and on the 19th of January 2019, Joaquin El Chapo Guzman was extradited to the United States of America. He was immediately handed to the Drug Enforcement Administration to hold him until he was charged for his crimes. On the 17th of July 2019, Joaquin Guzman was found guilty of all charges and sentenced to life in prison, plus 30 years to be served at ADX Florence, a supermax prison, and arguably the most secure prison in the United States. The ADX Florence is a prison facility that houses people that are labeled as monsters by the society, and according to his judgment, Guzman fits right in with them. ADX was initially created on the 22nd of October 1983, after two men named Thomas Silverstein and Clayton Fountain, who were both members of the Aryan Brotherhood, fatally stabbed correctional officers Merle Klutz and Robert Huffman at the U.S. Penitentiary in Marion. Thomas was walking down the hall handcuffed in front of him, then in what seemed like a scene from a movie, shoved his hands into his friend's cell, who unlocked his cuffs and handed him a stolen knife, allowing Thomas to kill the guard. A few hours later, a similar scenario occurred with Clayton using the same tactics. Back then, the U.S. Penitentiary in Marion used to be the primary prison for the worst criminals in the U.S. However, when these incidents happened, it became clear that they needed somewhere more secure to hold those inmates, and that was how the idea of ADX came into play. ADX was about housing the most dangerous of criminals in the country, people who had no regard for human life. It stands on a 37-acre complex in Colorado, part of a federal correctional complex, which has 3 correctional facilities, each with different security ratings. The majority of the facilities are above ground level, which is designed to house 460 inmates. But the prison has yet to reach its full capacity to date. As of May 2024, ADX houses 330 inmates in 6 different units. Every inmate has been sent there for demonstrating signs of being too dangerous to be held in lower security level prisons. And just like El Chapo, these inmates are confined to a single-person cell for 23 hours a day. When inmates are permitted to leave their cell, they're only allowed to be in a slightly larger area for just an hour. It can be any time, day or night. This time is also chosen by the correctional officers, and inmates are kept under restraints during the duration of the hour. During his 1 hour, like all of the other inmates adhering to prison rules, El Chapo is taken out in handcuffs and shackles. He's allowed to exercise or meditate during his 1 hour in the underground pool area. Granted, the pool area is larger than his cell, but for a place considered to be a break from their small and suffocating cell, it is still very small and cramped. The pool area is measured at about 10 steps, while walking in a straight line, and 30 in a circle. That tiny hellhole is considered a break from his even smaller hellish cell. This also is not a social hour, as the prisoners are never brought there to mingle among themselves. Most of the times, Guzman is brought to the area. There's no one to talk to. It's just him and his thoughts. Exactly how it is in his cell. Guzman has complained that he's had a lot of headaches because of this. The most painful part is that this is not the worst thing ADX has to offer. Food and snacks served to inmates are bland. The correctional officers are expected to thoroughly check that the meals or cutlery don't involve things that the prisoners can use to harm themselves or someone else. For someone like Guzman, when his cutleries, which are really just plastic disposables, are repossessed, the officers check if he's broken any part of it to make a weapon. His cell has a bed, a desk, and a stool, all of which are constructed entirely out of concrete. He also has a toilet right beside his door. This toilet is designed for one flush at a time, meaning it has no handles. His cell is one of the few cells with a shower within it, and even the shower is on a timer. Guzman has a particularly nice 13-inch television in his cell. However, he's not allowed to watch what he wants on it. The correctional officers supervise what he's allowed to watch like he's a 10-year-old. He's also given books and magazines if he wishes to read, but alas, the books and magazines are also censored. The cells have a 4x4-inch window, which is designed to prevent inmates from being able to pinpoint their exact location to make any plans for escape near to impossible. Outside the cell, there are a multitude of motion-detecting cameras and 1,400 remote-controlled steel doors. The guards in the control center take turns to watch the inmates for 24 hours every day. They also have a panic button they use to automatically shut all doors if they detect a problem. In addition to that, there are pressure pads and 12-foot razor wire fences surrounding the perimeter patrolled by heavily armed officers. If Guzman is lucky enough to sneak by all of those security measures, there are 12 different gun towers leading to ADX Florence. It is a lost cause to try to escape. Guzman would surely lose his life before he escaped to freedom. ADX has its inmates on 6 different levels. One of the levels is the General Population Unit, and under that unit is a unit simply named H, where Guzman is being kept. According to his lawyers, he's constantly being watched and taunted by the prison guards. They claim Guzman can't get any sleep because of the taunts and the prying eyes. But as high profile of a criminal as Guzman is, there are people in that prison complex who are even more dangerous than he is. There's a unit known as Range 13. It houses those who need toughest treatment, and it's meant for people classified as the most ruthless, murderous animals. People like Ramzi Youssef, who was convicted of terrorism and conspiracy for his part in the 1993 Trade Center bombing, killing 6 people and injuring more than 1,000. The US government is not willing to risk another escape and a potential manhunt. His lawyers have now started looking into a loophole to get Guzman moved. They claimed that during the trial, someone falsely accused Guzman of drugging and raping girls. They argued that this accusation compromised the jury's decision, and the trial should have ended in a mistrial. The US rebuffed these accusations and kept Guzman in ADX. His lawyers then went on to criticize the inhumane policies at ADX. They claimed 8 prisoners have managed to end their lives in ADX because of how mentally tasking it is to be in there, but all their arguments have also been rebuffed or outright ignored by US officials. Guzman himself has been begging to be sent back home to serve his time, saying that being in ADX is worse than being dead. But seeing the Sinaloa cartel which he heads is still very active in Mexico, and how all his adult sons have also started their own cartels. The United States refuses to send Guzman back home because they know for a fact he'll escape prison again the minute he touches Mexican soil.